Today, we are jumping right into one of the biggest detective stories in all of science, figuring out the family history of, well, every living thing on Earth. Seriously, it's a story packed with clues, some very convincing red herrings, and some absolutely brilliant scientific deduction.
So let's just start with a puzzle. What on earth could a whale's flicker, which is built for swimming through the ocean, possibly have in common with a bat's wing, which is built for flying through the air? I mean, they look completely different, they do opposite jobs, but believe it or not, the answer to that question is the key to unlocking the entire story of life.
And that little puzzle hints at a much bigger one. I mean, think about it. How do you even begin to organize the millions upon millions of species on our planet? How do you figure out who's related to whom? That right there, that's the grand family mystery we're trying to solve.
To solve it, scientists use a powerful idea called phylogeny. The easiest way to think about it is like building the ultimate family tree. But instead of just your aunts and uncles, this tree includes every living thing, showing how we're all related and tracing those connections back millions and millions of years. So, how do these scientists, actually piece this colossal tree together? Well, they look for clues. And the three big ones are the fossil record, which is like our photo album of the past, something called morphological homologies, which are basically just similar body parts, and molecular homologies, which gets right down to the nitty-gritty of shared genes in the DNA itself.
Okay, but this is where the real detective work kicks in, because it turns out not all clues are created equal. You have to get really good at telling the difference between real, solid evidence and the convincing fakes, the red herrings, that can send you down a completely wrong path. And yeah, this is where things get really, really tricky. Just because two animals happen to look alike or they share a similar feature, that does not automatically mean they're close cousins. Nature, you'll find, can be pretty deceptive sometimes.
And this brings us to the absolute core of the whole thing. You have to be able to tell the difference between homology and analogy. Homology is the good stuff. It's a similarity because of a shared ancestor. That's a real clue. Remember our bat wing and whale flipper? The bone structure inside is incredibly similar. That's a homology. Analogy, on the other hand, total red herring. It's a similarity that comes from something called convergent evolution. Now, this idea of convergent evolution is really fascinating when you think about it. It's basically when two totally unrelated species face similar challenges and they independently, they evolve similar solutions. It's like nature having a great idea and coming up with it twice, completely separately.
You want a perfect example of this? Okay, let's dive into a classic case study, the tale of two very different moles.
Now, if you just look at these two animals, you'd swear they were brothers. They've got the same streamlined body, massive digging claws, tiny little eyes. They are perfectly built for digging tunnels. But get this, their last common ancestor lived about 140 million years ago, and it looked nothing like a mole. These two creatures evolved all those features completely on their own. Their similarities are purely analogous. It's a textbook case of convergent evolution in action.
All right, so let's say we've done the hard work. We've sorted our real clues, the homologies, from all those misleading analogies. What's next? How do we organize all that data into a picture that actually makes sense? Well, that's where we build a phylogenetic tree.
A phylogenetic tree is basically a map. It's our best visual hypothesis of who is related to who. You can kind of read it from the bottom up. Every time you see a fork in the road, what scientists call a node, that represents a point where two new lineages split off from a common ancestor.
Now, this is super important. There's a right way and a very, very wrong way to read these trees. A classic mistake is to look at a chart with humans next to chimpanzees and think, oh, we evolved from chimps. Nope, that's not what it's saying at all. The tree shows that we both evolved from a common ancestor, way back in time. We're cousins, not parent and child.
So, you might be asking, how do scientists build these trees in a way that's not just, guesswork? Well, today they have a really rigorous, systematic approach, and it's called cladistics.
The whole point of cladistics is to find groups called clades. A clade is actually a simple idea. It's just a group that includes an ancestral species in every single one of its descendants. Imagine the tree of life as a real tree. A clade is what you get if you take a big pair of scissors and just snip off one branch. You get that branch and all the littler twigs and leaves that grew from it, the whole shebang.
Now, to define these clades, you have to find the right kind of evidence. There are shared ancestral characters, which are kind of like old news. For example, having a backbone is ancestral for mammals, but so what? Lizards and frogs have backbones too. The real key, the smoking gun, is the shared derived character. This is a brand new feature that's unique to a specific group. For mammals, what is it? Hair. Hair is the derived character that basically shouts, hey, a new group, the mammals, starts right here.
And scientists are incredibly systematic about this. They use a chart, a character matrix, that looks something like this one. It's really simple. A 1 just means the trait is there, and a 0 means it's not. By tracking where these new derived traits appear, like the amniotic egg, which groups the turtle and leopard together, and then hair, which singles out the leopard, you can logically map out exactly where the branches of the tree should split.
So, when we take all of these powerful methods, especially the mind-boggling amount of information we get from DNA, and we apply it to all known life, what does the final picture actually look like? What is the fundamental shape of the entire tree of life?
It turns out that all this incredible detective work has led us to a profound understanding. At the most basic level, all life on Earth is organized into 3 giant domains: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. And us? Well, we, along with every plant, fungus, and animal you've ever seen, we're all together in the domain eukarya.
This table gives you a quick breakdown. Bacteria and archaea are both prokaryotes. Their cells don't have a nucleus. We're eukaryotes. Our cells do. But here's the really wild part. For decades, scientists just assumed archaea were a type of weird ancient bacteria, but the genetic data shows that they are just as different from bacteria as we are. It completely redrew the map.
Okay, so this is all really cool, but let's be honest. You might be thinking, so what? Why does building this giant family tree actually matter? What can it tell us besides just, who's related to who?
Well, this is where it gets amazing. The tree of life shows us that the closest living relatives to modern birds are crocodiles. I know, it sounds crazy, right? But they share some really complex traits, like a 4-chambered heart and caring for their young in nests. And since we know for a fact that birds evolved from dinosaurs, we can use this family connection to infer that their common ancestor, and by extension many dinosaurs themselves, probably had these complex traits too. We're using the family tree to figure out how extinct animals behaved.
But in the end, it's so important to remember that this tree is just our best hypothesis. It's built on the best evidence we have right now. It's not carved in stone, it's a living document that scientists are updating all the time. So that leaves us with one final thought. What kind of discovery, a bizarre new fossil, a genetic breakthrough, do you think could be powerful enough to force us to completely redraw a major branch on this incredible map of life?